If you think Peter fell when he denied Jesus, you started the story too late. And that is worse than it sounds. Most people remember the courtyard, the fire, the questions, the pressure, the public implosion, because that is the loud part, but loud is not the same as first. The real break starts earlier, before the courtyard, before the panic, before Peter says a single catastrophic, "I don't know him." It starts when Jesus gives him a warning that could not be clearer. "You will deny me." That is not cryptic. That is not poetic. That is not one of those lines people can turn into a 3-hour debate. It is direct. And Peter answers just as directly. "I never will." Now on paper that sounds great. Loyal, bold, strong. Exactly the kind of line that would look fantastic in a heroic trailer. And that is the problem. Because Peter is not just showing devotion here, he is pushing back on a warning. Jesus says one thing. Peter basically says, "Not me." The headline is "The Denial." The real problem is the certainty. Peter is so sure of himself that he leaves no room for weakness, no room for fear, no room for pressure, and no room for the possibility that maybe Jesus understands Peter better than Peter understands Peter, which should have been a warning by itself. It is like turning off a smoke alarm because my house doesn't catch fire. That logic feels solid for about 6 seconds. Then the kitchen is on fire, and suddenly the alarm was not being dramatic after all. That is how warnings work. They are not there because disaster already happened. They are there because it is getting close. But Peter hears the warning and filters it through self-confidence. In his mind, failure is possible. Collapse is real. People panic. People fold. People say things they swore they would never say. Just not him. That is the crack. Not the courtyard. Not the servant girl. Not the fire. Not even the denial itself. The crack begins the moment Peter decides his confidence is more trustworthy than the warning. Because once someone becomes certain they could never fail in a specific way, they stop watching for it. They stop guarding against it. They stop taking the danger seriously. They walk straight toward the trap like it has their name on it and a welcome sign. So no, Peter's fall does not begin at "I don't know him." It begins at "I never will." And that was only the first warning he chose to ignore. Peter didn't fall because he was afraid. And that never ends well. Earlier in the evening, the group is swirling with questions and nerves, but Peter plants his feet, folds his arms, and drops a line that feels carved in stone. "Even if everyone else falls, I won't." On the surface, it's a banner of loyalty. Underneath, it's a flare of pride, because the sentence doesn't just say, "I'll try." It says, "I'm built different." Translation: the flaw that breaks ordinary people won't break this guy. That's the real danger marker. All night, the pressure outside will keep rising. Soldiers marching, rumors flying, a garden arrest scene straight out of a dark-lit drama. Yet Peter's biggest threat isn't the noise out there. It's the voice in his own head assuring him he's the statistical outlier. The danger was never just external force. It was the internal conviction that he stood on different physics. It's the same mindset as someone flooring the accelerator to 180 down a slick highway, mumbling, "Crashes only happen to the careless." Everything feels thrilling, right up to the moment the car discovers gravity and guardrails. People love that illusion, that confidence itself can bend reality. Peter wears it like armor that ironically comes pre-cracked. Because the moment a person believes failure is for them and not me, every warning sign looks optional. Every safety net looks decorative, and every step straight toward the cliff feels like a power move instead of what it really is, a perfect setup. Anyone who thinks they're above the fall is usually first to prove it. So the night rolls forward. Torches flicker in olive branches, soldiers rustle the quiet, friends scatter. Peter's words still echo in his skull. "I won't." The pledge feels heroic. The clock feels indifferent. Every minute, circumstances tighten. Every minute, Peter's confidence stays ironclad. And iron famously has one weakness. It's fine until it snaps. But the worst fracture hasn't even surfaced yet. That crack is still moving under the skin, silent, invisible, absolutely certain it can stay hidden forever. And Peter, convinced he is immune, won't feel it until the whole structure shifts beneath his feet. The collapse began while Peter slept. Nobody pays attention to that part. They should. The garden looks harmless. Moonlit olive branches, a mild breeze, 11 tired men pretending their eyelids aren't welded shut. Jesus steps a stone's throw away and leaves them one job, just one. Keep watch. It's the spiritual version of hold this flashlight. Within minutes, the flashlight is on the ground and Peter is out like a toddler after a feast. Public disasters almost always start with private neglect. The garden is the soft launch of the courtyard catastrophe. Quiet, dark, boring. Perfect conditions for a slow leak in vigilance nobody notices until the floor is ankle-deep in regret. Jesus returns, finds them sprawled, and wakes Peter with a question sharp enough to slice air. "Couldn't you watch with me 1 hour?" Peter blinks, mutters something heroic, and repeats the nap. Round 2. Same snore, louder. Picture a damn wall sprouting a hairline crack. Someone slaps on duct tape and calls it fixed. That's the garden. The tape feels clever right up to the moment the valley downstream becomes an unplanned swimming lesson. Peter's silence wasn't sabotage, just comfort dressed as discipline. He assumed danger would announce itself with trumpets. Instead it whispered, "Stay awake." And when he ignored the whisper marked him absent. On the third return, Jesus doesn't bother waking them. He simply says, "Enough. The hour has come." Translation: the test you slept through is now the exam you cannot skip. Time advances, torches multiply, boots approach. Peter will try to stand tall in the courtyard, but the strength he thinks he still has leaked out through that garden yawn. The headline later will be denial. The hidden story is drowsy negligence. He sharpened his sword earlier in the evening, yet dulled his awareness when it mattered most. You can't swing steel if your reflexes are on airplane mode. Look closely. Failure here isn't moral collapse, it's muscle memory. Soldiers drill until their arms know the shield by feel. Peter's training tonight was simple. Stay awake, stay near, stay ready. He skipped practice, so the reflex never forms. When courtyard heat spikes, he'll reach for courage that isn't cached, scroll for faith that isn't downloaded, and watch the buffer wheel of embarrassment spin in real time. The courtyard only revealed what the garden had already weakened. Momentum is merciless. One small concession to comfort snowballs into panic, and panic keeps receipts. By the time questions start flying near the fire, Peter's willpower is running on the dead battery he forgot to charge. That's why sleepy confidence is worse than fear. Fear at least keeps the eyes open. Confidence mixed with comfort puts faith in cruise control and removes the driver entirely. Every story has a quiet hinge. In this one, it's the moment eyelids win the argument. After that, the rest is gravity. When the pressure finally hits, what will still be standing? 3 harmless questions. 1 heavy structure collapsing. It isn't the servant girl who breaks Peter. It's the mirror she hands him. First question. You're with him, right? Instant denial. Second question. Pretty sure I saw you there. Another denial, faster this time. Third question. Casual, almost polite. Your accent gives you away, he swears, loud enough to scorch the night air. Deny. Deny again. Double down with an oath, that's the rhythm. Click, click, boom. The rooster doesn't introduce failure, it rubber stamps it. Crow, stamp. Crow, timestamp. Stamped at the precise second, Peter's confidence reaches its maximum and immediately shatters. Modern parallel. It's the day your flawless 4K avatar accidentally switches to the raw webcam and everyone sees the unfiltered pixels. No new flaw appears, the flaw just stops hiding. Peter doesn't fold because he's weak. He folds because his certainty finally meets heat and melts like sugar. The courtyard crowd isn't a courtroom, just random bystanders warming their hands. Yet Peter feels the questions as if each one carries a verdict. The louder his heart pounds, the louder his mouth insists, wrong guy. He isn't defending Jesus, he's defending the story he told himself in chapter 2. I'm immune. The servant girl simply shows him that story's warranty expired the second he took that garden nap. The headline reads denial, but the subhead in very fine print says, compiled from earlier chapters featuring pride, drowsiness, and unattended warnings. A rooster crows. History pauses. Peter's mind replays all the little cracks he ignored. Feet asleep, Sword flashed, bravado spoken, Nap repeated, and suddenly notices they line up perfectly like a dotted path to this firelit moment. He blinks, and for the first time all night the sound in his ears is not the crowd, not the crackle of logs, not even the rooster. It's his own heartbeat syncing with a prophecy he dismissed. The courtyard didn't ambush him, it surfaced him. Once certainty is tested, it either becomes humility or it breaks. Tonight it breaks, loud enough to echo through every chapter that follows. Peter staggers back, mouth open, words gone. The rooster keeps crowing. The sky stays dark. The fire keeps snapping. Nothing magical happens, except the illusion finally leaves the room. Because the rooster's note is just that, a note, not a weapon. It can't pierce armor. It can only prove whether there was any armor at all, and the noise merely exposes what was hollow long before it sounded. Next up, the fallout. Because collapsing is noisy, but processing the rubble is quieter and harder. Peter did not fail when he denied. He failed when he decided he never could. Flashback in a single breath, a warning brushed aside, confidence puffed up, a watch left unattended, a torch-lit arrest that made exposure unavoidable. The denial does not cause the fall, it only lifts the lid off the pot already boiling. Picture a glass front office tower every commuter trusts. Hidden inside, salty air gnaws at steel year after year. On a random weekday, a delivery truck rumbles across the garage. A quiet beam sighs and the headline screams collapse. Reporters gasp at the instant disaster, while the rust yawns that the timer started long ago. That is tonight in miniature. The rooster is not a grenade. It is a flashlight. It breaks nothing. It only forces every eye to see. Peter's fiery, "I do not know him," steals the camera, yet the lethal whisper earlier was, "I never would." Between those two lines, an invisible demolition crew keeps working. Ego over caution, sleep over vigilance, bravado over warning. You cannot stack faith on cotton candy and call it quake-proof. So when the servant girl tosses her feather-light question, she is not throwing dynamite, she is tapping glass. Tap, tap, spiderweb crash. Courtyard chatter swells, torches hiss, sparks pop. Peter feels every stare, every syllable, every unpaid interest on the laziness he renamed courage. He swings words like a dull blade, denial, denial, oath, and each hack severs the myth of immunity he rehearsed in brighter hours. Collapse seems sudden only if you skip the prologue. Rewind and watch pride unscrew bolts in every load-bearing beam. It is carpentry in reverse. Remove a single screw a day until the shelf dives while you pour coffee. Public ruin is always street gossip. Private negligence writes the invitation. Peter did not crash on, "I do not know him." He crashed on, "I never would." Denial is only the flag. Hubris is the shaky flagpole loosened in Scene 1. Here lies the quiet arithmetic. Unchecked pride, plus ignored warnings multiplied by time equals a predictable mess. Swap the name. Samson, Saul, Jonah, Demas. The equation holds. Same hum. Fine cracks no one felt urgent enough to mend because they happened off stage. Maybe it is Moses tapping a rock after a patience fracture nobody noticed. Maybe it is David strolling rooftop seasons before Nathan walks in. Maybe it is Ananias smoothing figures in a hallway while calling it generosity. Because collapses travel faster than memory, but they are built slower than boredom. Every overlooked sigh in the garden, every shrug at a small compromise, lays another invisible brick in the wall that will tumble on cue. Momentum never negotiates once it is paid in advance. Peter's night teaches that silence and certainty are twin architects of very public ruins for tomorrow. So which other biblical story looked solid, yet started cracking long before anyone caught the sound?